Welcome to the 3 Knockdown Rule. Starring Mario Lopez and Steve Kim. Presented by Hustler Casino.
Ladies and gentlemen, the 3 Knockdown Rule is in effect, brought to you by Hustler Casino. I'm Steve Kim, joined by Mario Lopez.
Wow, you attended the golf tournament. More on that later. Also in studio here with Smoking Tim Frazier and
Tino on the edits. The bout sheet for this week's show. Zayas and Shushu start spreading the news in New York. Tank versus Frank, and then joining us on the championship hotline, the one and only Bob Arum. And we have news and notes and final flurries. But before we get started, we just want you to know Hustler Casino is celebrating its 24-year anniversary by giving away a whopping $55,000 in cash on Saturday, June 22nd. Play now to earn drawing tickets so you can win big. Located just 15 minutes south of downtown LA, Hustler Casino is the perfect place for pie gow, poker, baccarat, and more. Visit hustler.com for more info.
Round 1.
All right, now we begin round number 1, looking ahead this Saturday night from the MGM Grand in Las Vegas on Prime pay-per-view. It is the return of Gervonta Tank Davis defending his WBA lightweight title of the world against Frank Martin. Mario, this is an interesting stat. The last time we saw Gervonta Tank Davis was April of 2023. You were there against Ryan Garcia. The last time we saw Frank Martin was July of last year.
Wow.
Ring rust, who does it affect more?
Oof. Well, funny you should ask, because I've spoken to a couple people lately that really like Frank Martin in this fight. They say he's the more disciplined fighter as far as constantly staying in the gym, remaining focused, always being in shape. Now, they can say all that, but it's a little different when you get in there and you finally feel that power from Tank. But there's a few people I know that I respect, trainers, that feel very confident that he is prepared to steal a victory. Now, I don't know about all that, but I do know it is different, like I said, when you get in there and those live bullets and you finally feel that power from Tank. It might take a minute for him to figure you out, gauge your distance, his distance, I should say, and get your timing. But once he does, he doesn't need too many shots to take you out or to start breaking you down. I don't think it's an easy fight for either fighter. I think it's going to be competitive and a good contrast in styles. I mean, I think you got to kind of lead towards Tank with experience and being the heavy-handed guy. But apparently, people that have seen Frank in the gym say he's going up against a very well-prepared Frank.
Here's what Frank Martin brings to the table. He doesn't fit the athletic stereotype profile of some of, or most of, Tank's opponents. He's fast, he's twitchy, he's got some quickness, and he's a southpaw. He's got really good hand speed. That right there, I think, makes the fight interesting, at least for 4 to 5 rounds, because of the speed. Here's what he lacks: seasoning. We talked about that last fight last summer on Showbox against Hartunian. I'm not so sure he won that fight. Now, he may have pulled it out, but I didn't come away from that fight thinking, man, that guy's a step away from competing with the elite at 135. I really didn't. Now, say what you want about Tank Davis. For all the talk of his power and strength, Mario, you saw it up close. I actually think he's a very crafty counterpuncher who lays traps.
No, he's underrated, I think, as a boxer. I think because his power is so impressive that he does set you up. He does lay traps. I mentioned he might take a minute to figure you out timing-wise and distance, but he knows what he's doing in there. He's an impressive guy, and not just because of his power.
Yeah, so look, do I think Frank Martin will compete early on? Yes, but as the fight settles in and Tank starts to gauge the speed and the quickness, there's going to be what I would call an erosion. And then eventually, Frank Martin, I just don't think he has the seasoning. And look, you could talk about the ring rust with both guys, but there is a thing called experience and being at the big stage. This is a Tank Davis fight. There's no doubt about it. He's going to be the guy that's selling 98% of the tickets. He's been at the big stage. The only thing that I worry about, and because it's been a problem in the past, will the long layoff hamper his ability to make 135? We're going to find out in a couple days. But that's interesting that you've talked to trainers that are kind of tipping or leaning towards Frank Martin, because most of the people that I've talked to, they're all going one direction. That's what Tank.
I didn't ask either. We were just sort of talking about fights in general, and they just kind of casually mentioned, I like Martin in that fight against Tank in an upset. I go, really? I go, that is interesting. Maybe they see something I don't. Maybe they've been to the gym. I don't know, but you bring up a good point. I think it's a huge one. Under the bright lights, which Tank is very comfortable in, he shines.
Yes.
And he's very comfortable. We don't know how Martin's going to be under those lights, because that's a whole nother element that you got to factor in. So I think that's an important factor.
Mario, the co-main event on this card, WBC light heavyweight champion of the world, David Benavidez takes on the nail, Xander Zayas. Mario, calling me intrigued because, number one, I want to see what Zayas has. How far is he from the guy that we thought so highly of after beating Adonis Stevenson, but then eventually was sent into quasi-retirement by Betterbiev in Philadelphia, a fight I was at LaCour Center. Also, David Benavidez for years has struggled and stretched and fit his way into 168. Now he's at 175. I want to see what happens once the physical shackles are off.
I think we're going to see even a big... By the way, he's still big for 175, but I think we're going to see an even... a guy with the sturdier legs. I think the speed will still be there, and I think it'll be a world of difference for him. And I honestly don't think I honestly think we've seen the last of him at super middleweight. Once he goes up there, I think, which he'll probably still struggle to make, it's going to be impossible for him to try to go back down.
Yeah, looking at Zayas, look, in the last couple of years as he's kind of revived this career, has had 3 fights, kind of at the C and B level. Certainly not the caliber of guys that I would say to myself, well, looking at this guy's ready to compete right back at 175. David Benavidez, in my view, Mario, is a guy on the ascent. He is still relatively young, in his mid to late 20s. We still have not seen the best of him. And look, we have seen fighters move up in weight who look vulnerable or look shaky. All of a sudden, they don't have to cut 7 to 8 pounds. They look like new guys.
They do. And listen, and like I've mentioned, he's a big guy. What is he, about 6'4"? And we had Jim Lampley on the show not too long ago who has high expectations. He thinks Benavidez can go all the way to heavyweight. I said, oh, okay. I go, let's see him at light heavyweight for a second. But he's very optimistic about his future, and he seems to be disciplined, a little more settled now, too. I do think sky's the limit for him.
Now, I want to see what happens the first time Zayas hits him with the real solid, legitimate light heavyweight punch.
Well, that's the thing.
That's the reaction.
Right,
because one thing about David Benavidez, he's an absolute rock slide that then becomes an avalanche, and he swarms you as he comes downhill. Also on this card, WBC junior welterweight champion of the world, Gary Antoine Russell, takes on Alberto Puello, and then WBC middleweight belt holder, Carlos Adames, takes on Terrell Gaucher. Well, that's it for round 1 of the 3 Knockdown Rule, brought to you by Hustler Casino. Scheduled to join us on the championship hotline, the one and only Bob Arum will join Mario Lopez and I. Coming up on the 3 Knockdown Rule.
Catch it streaming live right on YouTube.
Welcome to the big leagues, kid.
$1.2 million.
And I'm losing in this fucking game. What the fuck?
There's a 400K flip. If I win by way, you get 10 grand.
Fucking
For my fans.
What? Twice.
Wow. All in a call.
I'm not fucking leaving.
Raise it up.
All right, we're back on the 3 Knockdown Rule, brought to you by Hustler Casino, and joining us right now on the championship hotline, Mario, this man is the globetrotter. He's gone all around the globe, covering fights, looking at fights, and promoting fights, the one and only Bob Arum.
The Bob Father, thank you for taking the time to speak with us, sir. How are you?
Really good, really good. As Steve said, it's been a tremendous trip that I've been on. But now I got a couple of days to kick back and we're ready to go because as we get into the summer, our schedule is enormous. But thankfully, except for one fight in Canada, it's all in the United States.
Well, you've been racking up the frequent flyer miles. It's incredibly impressive. You were in Tokyo in May 6th for the Inoue fight. You were in Perth, Australia, May 11th for the Lomachenko-Kambosos fight. May 18th, you were in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, Fury-Usyk, of course, and May 25th in the UK with Taylor Catterall, and then New York, of course, June 8th for the Zayas Carrington show at the MSG. What do you remember most during this stretch?
Well, Japan is always one of my favorite places, particularly Tokyo. But we had never done a fight in the Tokyo Dome. It was the first boxing match in the Tokyo Dome since Mike Tyson and Buster Douglas fought there 30 years ago. So a long time. But the atmosphere was unbelievable. The place was, of course, sold out. And the thing that really impressed me, that I've never seen before, is, picture this, about 53,000 people in the arena. Now, Inoue scores a tremendous knockout, and not one person left until Inoue was finished, thanking everybody, talking to the crowd. Not one person. As contrast from the United States or any other place where at least half of the people would be gone by the time that the fighter was finished talking. And
I think
the
that
thing
speaks to the culture too, though, in the
right, well, of course, it speaks for the culture. and the thing that was even most impressive was the fight was on a Monday night, and people had to work the next day. So it wasn't like, hey, like it was a Saturday, hey, we can stay around because Sunday we're not working. No, they had to work the next day. But anyway, I love Tokyo. Great restaurants, great people, and we had a wonderful time. And I'm really blown away by this kid, Inoue. I mean, all fighters, if they could be like him, so polite and so nice and so cooperative, without any apparent ego. It just gets in the ring and does his job.
Bob, I was told by Todd, your son-in-law, your stepson, actually, and he sent me a video that there was 40,000 people in the venue 4 hours before the main event. So it's not like they just showed up an hour before the main event, which I found to be really interesting. Bob, what went through your mind in round number one when Inoue hit the deck?
Well, I've watched so many fights over the years where a fighter, particularly the favorite fighter, gets nailed early because he's careless and goes down and comes back. So the truth is, I really wasn't concerned because I saw that Inoue, even though he got knocked down, wasn't badly hurt.
Yeah, he continues to have such an incredibly impressive run. And your thoughts on the event that took place in Australia with Lomachenko and Kambosos? Because Lomachenko looks like he hasn't lost a step.
Well, the thing I remember most about that event was it was, again, another sellout. I mean, somehow we should be able to replicate in the United States what we're doing all over the world, is selling out one venue after the other. But Perth itself is a city that I had never been to. I had done fights in all over the cities we know in Australia, like Brisbane and Sydney and Melbourne. But Perth is on the complete west side of the country. The difference in between Sydney and Melbourne and Perth is the same as New York and LA.
Yes.
Except that in Australia, that whole expanse is virtually barren. That's why they call it the outback. So it's the culture in Perth sort of reminded me a lot of the 50s. First of all, the people were extraordinarily polite, but they are pretty much in Australia. And the way they conducted themselves was a throwback to days that I remember from so many decades ago. It was a terrific event. As you said, Loma looked extraordinarily good. I really think that he's found a way to pick up his game, and the Loma that we'll see in the next couple of years as his career winds down will be a Loma better than he's ever been.
Bob, with that said, he is now the IBF lightweight champion. That was for the vacant belt. Has Egis Klimas in that group, have they talked to you about the immediate future moving forward in terms of Lomachenko's next fight?
First of all, we had to ascertain, would there be a next fight? Would he retire? Because he's made considerable money, and he has if you can say that, have a good life in Ukraine, but they live on a water way where they do a lot of fishing. He and his son, by the way, is adorable. Goes to an English school and speaks perfect English. So I wasn't sure whether Loma would continue, but we've ascertained now that he will continue. And we'll look for what the biggest fight is for him to fight. In other words, he doesn't want to just fight a fight to fight a fight. He wants to fight the fight that'll bring the most attention and the most money, of course.
Of course, makes the most sense. Your thoughts on what took place in Saudi Arabia? Were you surprised by the outcome? It was such an entertaining affair between Fury and Usyk.
Yeah, well, I was shocked in the sense that here I am, I'm sitting at ringside, Frank Warren, and the first round you could give to Usyk, and then from round 2 to 7, it was like a no contest. I mean, Fury won those rounds easy. And it looked to me like Usyk was getting tired. And I said to Frank, I think Fury's going to knock him out. But somehow Usyk found some kind of strength and started putting it on Fury, almost had him out of there, I think, in the 9th round. And he clearly won the 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th. And I remember going into the 11th round, I told Frank he's got to win one out of those 2 rounds to win the fight. Now, he clearly lost the 11th round. And I thought, and everybody gave him, all the judges gave him the 12th round. So when I got in the ring, I had it 7-5, less, of course, a point for the knockdown. And I had Fury winning by a point. Well, 2 of the judges had one of the rounds different from what I had, and they had Usyk winning by a point. whatever. It was a great fight. Two really good guys, warriors, and we're going to play it back again December 21st in Riyadh.
Bob, the week after, I thought it was really interesting, the Josh Taylor Catterall rematch. Look, I'll be honest with you. I thought Catterall won the fight. Obviously, you disagreed. You had a better seat. And afterwards,
No.
like that decision.
I was sitting next to Eddie Hearn, who Catterall's his fight, and we were scoring the fight. And I had it 7-5 for Taylor. He had it 7-5 for Catterall. Could have been a 6-6 fight. But those were the only scores that were acceptable. Anything else was ridiculous. And one judge had it 10 rounds to 2 for Catterall. That's what I objected to. Not that if it had been 7-5 and the scores had been announced at 7-5, I wouldn't have said anything because that was certainly within the realm of possibility.
Okay, so it's the margin. It's not the result. It's the margin to make that.
Yeah, I agree completely. And I thought I made it clear.
I appreciate the fire, Bob. I like the spitting fire right there. One of the fights that I've been looking forward to for the last couple of years that unfortunately did not take place, but will later on, is the Betterbiev Bivol fight. What is the latest with Betterbiev? How is his health? How is he? I mean, I think one of the issues, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that he trains so hard sometimes that training could be looked at as overtraining, and then he's more susceptible to injury.
Yeah, well, I'm not a doctor, so I don't know. But I know that he injured his meniscus, which is not that serious because it's not like an ACL or something like that. And they tell me that he's now fit and ready to go, and that whenever the date is finalized in Riyadh, he's now available. So I think probably October we'll have that fight.
Kim and I are split on who we like in that fight. I still think Betterbiev.
I agree. I think Betterbiev, Bivol is a tremendous boxer, very talented guy, but he's never dealt with the smoke that Betterbiev has.
Right.
It's more smoke than Canelo. He gets in there, and when he starts wading in there, it's good night for his opponents. Mm-hmm. So, it's boxing. It go either way. Sure. But I really like Betterbiev's chances.
Yeah, and by the way, in terms of that fight, I believe it was announced on that show in Saudi Arabia last week, October 12th.
My birthday weekend.
Yeah, perfect. Bob, you have wrapped up this world tour. At your age, are you worn out? And was there ever a point years ago where you said, "Okay, I'm gonna lay back on the travel. I'm gonna cut back"? And did you find out you just can't operate that way?
No, what I did was that I couldn't operate that way traveling the way we all used to travel. Going through terminals and everything. I found a way to travel where you don't have to do that. There's a service in LA, which I always leave from LA, where you drive up and they take your bags and they check in for you, and then they drive you to the plane and you go right up to your seat. And when you come back, they meet you at the plane, they get your bag. So obviously I've got to do those kind of things in order to do the travel. If I had to do this travel the way, say, you do, around, I would be absolutely exhausted. I couldn't do it.
Bob, when you look,
I'm being honest with you.
Yeah,
I agree.
I agree.
Bob, do you find though that doing this, keeping yourself busy, not laying back, does it keep you young? And did you ever imagine, let's say at age 60, that you'd still be doing this at age 93?
I never, looked at that. I mean, I never felt that there was a end to it. I mean, there'll be an end when I'm no longer here, but I know that's inevitable. But again, I never ever considered when I was 50 or 60 or 70 that there was an end point. The end point will come, obviously, when I can't do it anymore because I'm an age where you can't do those things. But right now, I'm not near that point. That's the truth.
I love that. As a
Yes.
nonagenarian, I love that, and it's so inspirational, Bob. And I'm taking a page out of your book, my friend, and I love it. I love it. Getting back to one of your fighters who I'm a big fan of too, Teofimo Lopez. What's I know he faces Steve Claggett on June 29th. Pardon me. What's the big fight out there for him? Who would you ultimately like to see him matched up with? Because there's some fun potential names.
Well, I mean, Claggett's a good test for him, and he's in great shape. And the trick with Teofimo is to bring him back, assuming he's successful on June 29th in Miami, is to bring him back as soon as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So he keeps in shape and keeps occupied. I think there are, some interesting fights for him, maybe as high as welterweight. We were discussing at one particular point, seriously, matching him with Ryan Garcia, which would have been still maybe a massive fight.
Mm-hmm.
But Garcia, I mean, is obviously having certain problems, and he may not be available for that fight. But Haney would be a good opponent for him. There are a lot of guys, but and going up in welterweight, there's a number of fighters that we might match him with. I mean, if Manny Pacquiao is available and the Saudis put up the money for a Pacquiao fight, Teofimo would be a great opponent.
Bob, when you look at the relationship with Teofimo, it's had its ups and downs, and he's had certain expectations that you could argue aren't realistic, and he has his own thoughts. Where do you stand on that relationship right now? Do you think everything you guys are kind of seeing things eye to eye, at least at this particular point in time?
Yeah, I think, personally, I've never had any problem with Teofimo or his father. And our relationship now is the best that it's been. We communicate all the time. We've got him to realize we have a 15-person social media department, and that he is perfect for social media because he's such a character. And so we're working him hard on social media, and he's taking to it. He loves it. He's a ham. So I would think that our relationship now is the best that it's been, certainly that it's been the last few years.
Bob, speaking of a relationship that may or may not be long-term, Shakur Stevenson in early July, you guys are bringing him back to Newark, and this is the final fight of your current contract. And a lot of things have been said by Shakur over social media. He says a lot of things. He's outspoken, then he takes them back. What is your thoughts in terms of what happens after he fights Haratunian?
Well, boxing is no different from any other sport. If an athlete finishes his contract, he then looks around for the best possible opportunity. And if Shakur finds that with some other company, God love him. He's lived up to his contract with us. We've lived up to a contract with him. by and large, have had a good relationship. But free agency is free agency. And it shouldn't be any different in boxing from what it is in other sports. I mean, nobody except crazy Giant fans would complain that Saquon Barkley left the Giants to play for the Eagles because the deal was better. I mean, that's what free agency means.
Bob, but this is the thing. I think we've talked about this. Shakur wants to fight everybody. That has never been an issue. He'll fight Godzilla, King Kong. But does he not realize that just because another fighter is under the top-ranked banner, that you yourself cannot force that other side to get in the ring with him when he wants?
Well, he has a certain problem with that he, I think, gives us a lot more credit than we deserve, that we can make things happen by treating these other fighters almost like they're puppets. And the answer is we don't and we can't. So whether he understands it or not, James Prince, his manager, understands it. And these other fighters, whether they fight for top rank or for somebody else, have their own ideas of what's best for them. And that's the way it should be.
No, absolutely. And last question for me, Bob. Have any decisions been made in terms of, anyways, next date?
Yes. He's fighting. He wants to stay at 122. You know, he came to New York to get this award from the boxing writers, and then went to Yankee Stadium to meet with Ohtani and Yamamoto. And Yamamoto, and I guess in his honor, pitched a great game against the Yankees on Friday night. And we took him out to dinner after the boxing writers' dinner because, you know, the boxing writers serve food with a lot of sauces, and Japanese don't eat that way. So we had to take him to a real steak restaurant. No, I mean, it's culture is culture. That's that. So we had a good time, and then he went Friday night to see Ohtani and the Dodgers play the Yankees, and then Saturday he was in Madison Square Garden, and he particularly was interested in Shushu's fight because Shushu was really a great prospect at 126. And after the Shushu fight, they all left. They didn't stay for the Xander fight. So I guess they're on their way back now to Japan. But September, they'll look for the best available guy at 122. And then probably next year, move up to 126.
Bob, taking a look at Inoue, I know I bring this up a lot. Is it now just a pipe dream because of the money Inoue makes in Japan that he will never return back to the States for an actual fight?
No, we're talking to people who will guarantee a big gate. If he fought in LA or in New York at Madison Square Garden, we could do a gate that is commensurate at least with the gates that he would do in Japan. I was talking to Jim Dolan Saturday night at the Garden, and I asked him what the price should be for ringside for an Inoue fight, and he said 5,000, maybe 7,500. So I think with those numbers, you could in the big garden, you could do a gate of over 20 million. But I mean, it's not a pipe dream. Look what's happening with Dodger tickets.
That's right.
Because the tourism that's coming from Japan is so tremendous that tickets for the Dodgers that you can buy on the internet or through brokers are $5,000 and $10,000 a seat for a game now, and the Japanese will pay big money to see their stars. So I mean, you look at the fans in Dodger Stadium, and heavily Japanese.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I was just at a game last week, and that's exactly the case. I saw a lot of Japanese having micheladas too, so they're adapting to the.
Yeah, but probably with Kirin beer though. They bring a lot of yen. Bob, a couple of things before we wrap it up with you. A two-part question. What is the Turkey Al-Sheikh impact on boxing at this point, you think?
Well, I think he's elevated boxing because he has brought to the sport what nobody can quibble with, and that's money. I mean, the purses being paid to fighters now are so much more than could be afforded if regular promoters put these events on, and that goes down to fighters on the card. Fighters are getting a purse, let's say, of $1 million or $1.5 million, where they would be making in ordinary circumstances maybe $150,000 or $250,000. Now, I think that's good. That's not bad, because that gives an inspiration to a lot of these fighters to keep working and bettering themselves so they can reach the golden ring, so to speak, and get purses. I mean, the Betterbiev Bivol fight, the purses are over $20 million now.
Fantastic,
You
and
know,
also
the
provide
promoter-
incentive for the promoters to work together as well.
Right. Because again, no promoter could afford that amount. As good a fight as Betterbiev Bivol, where would we get the money back? And the Fury-Usyk fight, the purses were over $100 million. Now, that was a great fight, a big fight, but an ordinary promoter couldn't afford it.
And Mario, speaking of that, Jared Anderson, the big baby, promoted by Top Rank, will be on the August 3rd card at BMO Stadium,
That's right.
which is part of the Riyadh season coming to the United States. Bob, final question from me. A couple of weeks ago, we did a 5 versus 5. Your old friend Frank Warren blanked Eddie Hearn in the Battle of Stables. Is there any thoughts of you guys doing something similar with Golden Boy?
Well, look, truth is, if you look at the Queensberry match room, a majority of those fighters were not promoted by either guy. They went out and they signed fighters in order to match other fighters. In other words, say the Wilder Zan fight. Frank didn't have an option anymore with Zan, and Wilder wasn't under contract to Matchroom. So again, it looked great, it looked exciting, but it's not necessarily important. What was good about that fight, that show, the 5 against 5, is that by and large, 5 very good fights, 5 very interesting fights, and they had all different weight classes. So I think that was what you're looking for.
Absolutely.
To
Well, Bob, I know.
get the promoters involved. and label, and they stay up and they try to get thing over on the next guy. You don't need that. You just need good fights.
Exactly it. That's exactly right. And you've been providing that for years, Bob, and continue to do so. Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, my friend. And look forward to hopefully speaking with you again soon and seeing you in person, hopefully.
Yeah, well, again, summer's coming, so I'll be spending more time in LA than in Las Vegas when I'm not on the road. So
Nice.
I'll be happy to come over and do it in the studio.
Oh,
Would love that.
Bob,
Open invite.
Bob, well, you want to make that happen. Let's put that in. We'll make sure we make that happen before the summer. I know you got a show July 13th with Janabek, but we'll certainly make that happen. Bob, I know you're jet lagged. I know you want to get your rest as
Not
always.
jet lag. Come on. What are you, crazy?
He's a machine.
He's a machine. But anyway, Bob, appreciate your time. We'll talk again soon.
Thank
All
you.
right, good being with you guys.
All right, and that's
Okay,
it for
buddy.
the 3 Knockdown Rule Hustler Casino. We come back with news and notes and fight review and fight preview.
Review preview.
And we're back on the 3 Knockdown Rule. Bob Arum, that man's
How
amazing.
dare you say he's tired,
I'm
dude?
just
The guy's a
saying.
machine. I love it. I want to be the Latino Bob Arum. I want to be working until my 90s. And that's the thing, man. You got to keep going. You just keep moving. Once you stop and you slow down, that's when you start to deteriorate.
An old friend of mine, Bob Case, who helped me a lot in this business, once said, Steve, retirement has killed more people than work.
It's true.
Words to live by.
It is true.
Moving on to the fight review and fight preview. This past weekend, Xander Zayas with a 10-round decision over Patrick Teixeira at the Madison Square Garden. And the co-feature, Bruce Shushu Carrington, breaks down Brayon de Gracia in 8. Mario, I think Zayas is better than Berlanga and Felix Verdejo. I don't know if I see the upside of a Cotto and Trinidad. Is that okay?
Yes. I think it's enough to maybe showcase that weekend, which is a big weekend. And he's still young. He's still growing. I don't know if he's the second coming of Cotto or Trinidad. Like I said, it remains to be seen, but I do think he is a disciplined, focused young man, and he already shows more promise than a Berlanga or a Verdejo at this point.
I was really hoping in the last 2 rounds he could find a way to put an exclamation point by scoring the stoppage.
Yeah.
He's only 21, so I don't know when he's going to get his full man strength.
That's what I'm saying.
But,
That's young, bro.
but keep this in mind. Punches are born. They're not made.
It's true.
I mean, Trinidad at age 19 or 20 was knocking out grown men.
Oh,
and
no,
I
of
remember
course.
I was at a lot of Cotto's early fights. He was hitting through people. He really was.
Right, but you don't necessarily have to be blasting everyone out to become. I mean, look at Mayweather. I'm not saying he's a Mayweather, but I'm saying the perfect example of a guy that. But then again, he had a certain personality. He is a nice young man, and that may
Marketable and personable.
Right,
Does all the
exactly.
right things.
So I think he. I think he's going to be just fine if he stays the course.
Yeah, he's not there, but he's making progress.
I'll tell you who does seem to be on his way there is Shushu.
Oh boy.
I
like him.
I really like him too. We've had him on the show. He's a guy that seems very mature beyond his years. Very impressive. I know this guy was a late replacement, but he took him out in the 8th and looked impressive in doing so. I think he's got a bright ceiling, or high ceiling, I should say. Very respectful towards Inoue with a little bow.
Little
at
bow.
the end of the
Bonsai.
bout. Yes.
Bonsai.
So I think he is a kid who he's really got a bright future ahead.
I think it's unfair when people rip him from wanting Inoue. Wait a minute. What are we in this game for?
Yeah, exactly. What is it? What do you, exactly?
And by the way, let's make this clear. Inoue's still at 122, but I think within a year or two, he's ready for the Venados, the Rafa Espinosas, the Nick Balls, the Ray Vargases.
I think he's in the mix right now.
And
for
I'll
those.
say this again about Carrington, even though he's only 12 fights in, he is 27. And he has the mind of a 35-year-old grown man, very mature, very stable.
He's in his man strength.
Right, and the thing that I like about him, and I'm going to say this again, he reminds me of those fighters that I grew up loving in the 80s and 90s. He has that feel. He's athletic, he's technically sound, but he doesn't run from a fight, and he just gets it. You talk to anyone that knows him, they will tell you that this is a guy that has good potential, and he's not going to end up like this. Adrian Broner, it's over. He's now the can't man. He can't make weight, can't let it go, can't be disciplined, can't stay away from the drink, can't stay out of trouble, and he can't beat Blair the Flair Cobbs. It's over.
Can't keep his teeth either. I can't believe my guy
Yeah.
got his teeth literally knocked out. And you know what I couldn't get away from, or pardon me, my takeaway in leading up to the fight is in seeing Don King. I forget that Don King. There's an example of a guy I think below the same age as Bob Arum.
Right.
And look at how Arum is still entrenched in the sport with some of the best fighters in this game. And I think Don King, now that everyone ages ages differently, right? And he slowed down some, still kind of in the game, but it's
not at the magnitude.
But not at the magnitude or the level that Arum is. So it is interesting.
The difference between Bob and Don is Bob has always been able to evolve and get with the times. Don, I think, lacked that a little bit, and it's hurt him. And look, I respect what Don King has done, the contributions to the game, but you're right. One guy's a part of the biggest events in the sport, and the other one really wasn't. By the way, I know people that were in the locker room area of the Broner fight. As someone described it to me, the scene, while Blair Cobbs had a couple people warming up, really focused, kind of private, kind of quiet and intense. My buddy who was there said that Broner's locker room and leading into that whole pathway, he said it reminded him of Freaknik. So it was not exactly the most focused, disciplined lead up to the fight.
Wow.
Yeah, he said Freaknik.
You know, and he's been in the game for a while now, Kim, and you figure there would be some maturity and some lessons learned along the way. Especially
What's
after
that line from Bronx Tale? What's the worst thing in life?
Wasted talent. Because he did have some talent. He was an impressive lightweight.
Yeah.
And it's sad because he does have talent, and there's some guys that aren't as talented, but they plug away and they work hard, and they're disciplined, and they squeeze out all they can of the talent they do have, and they end up having a nice, successful little career. This guy, you look at him and you're like, wow, what if? He made some big money, hung around the scene for a while, but really underdelivered as far as his potential.
He will be an object lesson in that you can have all the tangibles, but the intangibles matter. Like when I look at Bruce Carrington, just the way he is, he has all the intangibles,
Right.
and I said, you're going to get everything out of your ability.
Correct.
Also, this Saturday, in addition to the pay-per-view card from Viva Puerto Rico on the Zone, IBF Junior Welterweight Champion Subriel Matias, an absolute meat grinder, has a pretty tough fight against Liam Paro. Matias is another one of those guys. Even though he has a belt, there's not a lot of guys rushing to face him. That is a rough, tough,
That's a dangerous dude.
physical style.
News and notes.
And Mario, wrapping it up here. News and notes. I will give Ryan Garcia credit. This guy knows how to stay in the news.
He stays in the news. And listen, God bless and respects to his mother,
Lisa.
Bless her if she's ill and I believe battling cancer, right? But what you don't want to do is add more stress to your mom and her dilemma right now. So I don't know what the latest reports were that he was going Mick Jagger in the in the hotel room, which, by the way, the Waldorf Astoria is not cheap.
It's not the hotel, motel, holiday Inn.
No. So, hopefully things got cleared up there. They're waiting to see the decision, I think.
He
for the New York
tweeted
State
on
Athletic
and he
Commission.
tweeted on Tuesday that he's out, that he's free. I thought when he was getting detained, it looked interesting. It kind of reminded me of Spaceballs. He looked like Darth Helmet. I didn't know what that was all about.
No. I think that. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, look, we're in LA. They're great at letting people go right here. I was talking about the New York State Athletic
Commission.
Commission.
Well, here's the thing, though. People have forgotten about that now. That thing's been pushed way down the
But
priority
it's going to
list.
resurface because
Yes.
I think in the next week or so, we're going to hear something one way or another. And we've discussed if it's like 6 months, okay, no harm, no foul. Then we just got to get back on board, and that's probably how much time would have gone by. But it remains to be seen. If he wants to be serious about competing at this level, then some of these shenanigans got to stop.
Maybe we can also say he probably has more important things to talk about than just boxing. And Mario, real quickly, Manny Pacquiao was reported by Mike Coppinger of ESPN. He could be returning to Mario Barrios, and your reaction, you're not a fan of it, huh?
Dude, it makes me
Neither
sad.
am I.
Makes me sad.
Me too.
It really does.
Right. Didn't he
Because-
have bigger things to do besides boxing? Like, I don't know, being a statesman for the Philippines? What happened to that?
My God, exactly. And he is so incredibly generous with his finances. I mean, this is obviously
To a
money,
fault.
To a fault, because this is a money place. So it just makes me sad because I don't want to see him get hurt.
He's still 45. That's the thing.
That's what I'm saying.
This is a
of
young
course.
man's game.
Just like Tyson, about to fight at 60 and stuff, who, by the way, it's now back on.
Yeah, November 15th.
Oh, my God. I know you're excited about that.
Yeah.
And I don't want to see that happen. It's a lose-lose for Jake because are you wanting to get taken serious as a fighter? You're not going to be fighting a guy who's almost 60 years old. And, yeah, he's a legend, but come on. Is it purely a money play? Have you carved out this niche where it's really kind of just WWE because it has been lucrative? It's very confusing. Look, I'm all about bringing more eyes to the sport, but I don't want to do it to the detriment of legends like Tyson and Pacquiao.
Final flurries.
And Mario, final thing here. Your golf tournament raised a lot of money for a great cause.
Great cause, St. Joseph's Hospital. And we did raise a lot of money, went out there, swung a few balls, had a good time at the after party. It was a good time.
Yachtly Crew always puts on a good show.
And they put on a good show.
Put on a good show.
They put on a good show. Bro, I haven't drank from 10 a.m. to like 5 or 6. I drank
since Sunday.
Yeah, no. This was like 10 hours of drinking. I woke up, I would have rather taken an ass whooping than got out of bed when that alarm clock rang. So yeah, if I seemed out of it during the show, forgive me. I was going on fumes.
All right, so ladies and gentlemen, we wrap it up here. If you'd like to get involved with the 3 Knockdown Rule and sponsor our fine program, we still have some slots available. Please reach out to us by emailing info@boxbid.io. Once again, that's info@boxbid.io. Boxbid.io is an online platform that is launching soon that helps public figures and professionals in the world of boxing get sponsorships. We are proudly working with Boxbid.io. So on behalf of Mario Lopez, Smoking Tim Frazier, and Tino on the edits, this has been the 3 Knockdown Rule brought to you by Hustler Casino.